Hey everyone, I'm Ranzha, and today I'm going to give you some information about Skewb and some techniques which are integral to speed solving the Skewb. This is a Skewb. Skewb is a puzzle first sold by Meffert's Puzzles and Games. Skewb speed solving has been approved as a brand new WCA official event for 2014. This is a Skewb right here. As you can see, it is cube shaped. But it doesn't turn like a 3x3 around the faces. Instead, the Skewb turns around the corners, like this. For those of you who are seeing how the Skewb turns for the first time, it can be very disorienting. The Skewb has three types of pieces. There are 4 fixed corners, 4 hanging corners, there's 2 of them, and 6 centers. If you look on the Skewb, you notice that all the corners, well, they look the same, don't they? So it's really tough to distinguish between the fixed corners and the hanging corners. So collectively, they're just referred to as the 8 corners. The centers are easy to distinguish from each other because, well, they each have one sticker and each one is a different color. But what many people struggle with getting their heads around is the fact that the centers are not fixed like they are on a 3x3. See how the centers are fixed to the core? In this case, we have 4 corners that are fixed to the core, and they each have 3 orientations. Because of this, these are called the fixed corners, because they're fixed to the core. These 4 corners form what's known as a tetrad. Basically, what happens is that these 4 corners can't change permutation with relation to each other, just like the centers on a 3x3. No matter what, if you know the permutation of one of these 4 corners, and the next one of the adjacent ones, then you'll know the positions of the final 2. Same goes with the tetrad that's formed with the other 4 corners. The other 4 corners, as I said, are called the hanging corners, and they too form a tetrad and function in the same manner as the fixed corners. The permutation between the tetrads can change, but the permutation within each tetrad cannot change. The square-shaped centerpieces are last. As I said before, these centers can change their permutation, unlike the centers of a 3x3. In fact, these centerpieces don't actually function like the 3x3 centers at all. These centers function like the edge pieces on a 3x3, as you can see like that. And as you can see, they fit very nicely in between 2 corner pieces, like that. Probably the easiest way to turn a Skewb is to choose a corner that you want to turn around. For instance, let's do this one in front here. Put your fingers on the centers surrounding this corner, so this one, and this one, and then twist your fingers either clockwise, 120 degrees, like this, or anti-clockwise, 120 degrees, like that. As far as solving goes, the Skewb is rather simple, with a God's number of 11 and just over 3 million permutations. There have been many methods devised over the years. Off the top of my head, I can think of Jaap Scherphuis' solutions, Mike Twichak's or acubist's solution, a solution from TwistyPuzzles forums, Hideki Nina's or Rubik'skewb's methods, the one algorithm beginner's method popularized by Chris Bird, the Kirjava-Meep Skewb method, which is really a couple of methods, Sarah Strong's method and her variations thereupon, and my method called Ranzha's Skewb method, and my variations on that. These days, only a few of those methods are used, namely the one-alg method, which I personally don't recommend, Kirjava-Meep, also known as Kirjava-Meep, Sarah's, and Hideki Nina's, because they're very similar, and my method. None of them are particularly hard to learn, but memorizing algorithms has been difficult for some people, except for Sarah's method and the one-algorithm method. It's very important to know that each of these advanced methods have a very unique and different approach to physically turning the puzzle, as well as solving the puzzle. Here's an overview of the current advanced methods. The Kirjava-Meep Skewb method is simple to explain and has yielded world-class times. One of the inventors of the method, Meep, at one point held the unofficial world records for Skewb using Kirjava-Meep at about 6 seconds. It has 3 basic steps. The first step is to make a face. Here's a face. Actually, it's a kind of a layer because the corners are correct. This is an intuitive step and should only take, well, that's about 4 or 5 moves. Next step is to solve all the corners. And the last step is to solve all the centers, the last 5 centers, called L5C. And then when you're done, you should have this. The notation for Kirjava-Meep is referred to as FCN, which stands for Fixed Center Notation. What this means is that the corner right in front is fixed. So all the moves that you're going to make are going to keep this in the same place no matter what. Kind of like 2x2, where you only have U, F, and R moves, which keeps the back corner in the same position. In this case, we're just going to keep this one in the same position. He likes turning this corner over here, this corner over here, this corner up here, and this corner back here. That's invisible. Sarah Strong's Skewb method is fairly simple like Kirjava-Meep. There are variations for each skill level, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Sarah's beginner variation has 4 steps. Step 1 is to solve the first side. It's actually kind of a layer. And here you have that. Step 2 is to solve the remaining corners. We already have that, actually. Look at that. All the yellow corners are good. The third step is to solve the U-center. In this case, that's yellow. So what I would do is I do this, and there we go. And the fourth step is to solve the remaining centers, which has 3 cases. As you can see, this approach is very similar to the Kirjava-Meep approach, except that it took the last step of Kirjava-Meep and split it into 2, solving first the U-center before going into the last 4 centers. Sarah's method only uses 2 algorithms, really just one algorithm and its inverse, the same algorithm that you use in the one algorithm method, where Kirjava-Meep has optimal algorithms. Also, Sarah's method uses a different turning style. Her website has notation for turning this corner up here, this corner in front here, and this corner over here. Sarah's intermediate variation is what really starts to ramp up in skill. It does this by combining the second and third steps of the beginner's variation, thus leaving the middle step of the solve to solve the opposite side. Lastly, Sarah's advanced variation combines steps 2 and 3 of the intermediate variation to solve the first side, and then to solve the rest. As Sarah puts it, this is where it gets a bit crazy. It has 134 cases to it. Hideki Nina's, or Rubik'skewb's, methods are a variety of methods, many of which are similar to Sarah's method. The way that most people do it is that it's the same thing as Sarah's intermediate variation, except instead of using only those 2 algorithms, you have optimal algorithms in the same notation as Sarah's, only it's been expanded and it's actually an older solution than Sarah's. If you'd like to check that out, please look at the link below, as well as links to all the other methods that are being discussed here and were mentioned in the beginning. Lastly, my method, called Ranzha's Skewb method, is the last and most recently developed of these advanced methods. I have a written tutorial for beginners, but the 4 steps of the method stay essentially the same. The first step is called the Petrus block. It looks like this, where you solve 2 corners and 2 centers. You're going to put this on the top left. The second step is to expand to these 2 corners, so that will look like this. The third step is to do the last 4 centers. In this case, I only have 3 to do. There are only 6 cases for this. And the last step is to orient the bottom layer corners. The beginning is a little different from the other 2 methods of these advanced methods that I've discussed, but after the second step, the first layer is finished, so it's a little bit similar. The only problem is, the layer stays on top, whereas with the other 2 methods, the layer goes to the bottom. The advanced version of this method combines the third and fourth steps, leaving the last step to solve the last 4 centers along with the corners of the last layer, which has 74 cases to it. When I'm turning the Skewb, the notation that I like to use is referred to as fixed center notation. Basically what happens is no matter what turn I do, the U-center is going to stay fixed. Because of this, I can only turn corners of the bottom layer. So that would include this corner, this corner, this corner, and this corner. The important techniques to speed solving Skewb are know ahead, more so than look ahead, and TPS. Skewb is also notoriously hard to finger trick. Because of its construction, Skewb is more difficult to turn than other puzzles. Where n by n by n cubes turn at 90-degree intervals, Skewb rotates every 120 degrees, further than this 90-degree convention that we're already used to. Additionally, many Skewbs come with ball bearings, which provide a clicky sound which some people don't like. Personally, I like having BBs in my Skewbs. Like that. You can hear them now clicking. It makes me feel like I'm in more control over the puzzle. The biggest hindrance to Skewb construction isn't the individual turns, though. The real setback is transferring from move to move. Some people develop finger tricks, which I can't do for Skewb, but some turning styles don't cater to finger tricks. This makes turns per second inherently slower, so drilling algorithms and working out the kinks in executing algs really does the trick. The other important technique for Skewb is know ahead. Skewb is weird. It turns in ways most people are not used to. Know how each of your algorithms affects the pieces, and know how to get from some states to others using those algorithms. This is the whole basis for what's referred to as hacking algorithms, or simply hacks. Instead of learning a move-optimal algorithm for a case, some solvers will use what they already know to devise a solution that they can execute quickly, perhaps more quickly than the optimal algorithm itself. It's kind of like 2-look-OLL, but instead of applying 2 algorithms or however many algorithms in order to basically mindlessly solve the rest of the cube, you're using a combination of algorithms that you know exactly what it's going to do when it finishes, so that you can do it much more efficiently than otherwise. I hack way more than I should, but it's a lot of fun to see how the pieces interact and change even after just like 4 twists or something. Also, I've been kinda lazy. I've generated algorithms for some cases that I really do believe I should know, but I haven't learned quite yet. To get fast at Skewb, you first have to know what fast is. As it currently stands, the top Skewb solvers can solve in under 8 seconds on average. A similar model to the 3x3 benchmarks at sub 60, sub 30, sub 20, sub 15, sub 12, and of course sub 10 can be on Skewb like sub 20, sub 15, sub 12, sub 10, sub 8, and sub 6. Some people who are averaging or have been averaging sub 8 include Meep, Sarah, Rubik'skewb, Otter, acubist, and me. A lot of those people have spent a lot of time considering Skewb and ways to optimize the solving process, long before Skewb was getting the grand push to eventhood. But others have been picking up the Skewb and have been going, okay, well, I'm going to learn this method and do all this cool stuff, and oh, wow, this is really cool, and then discover things for themselves, and after a while, they're sub 8. To get sub 20, learn any method you like, except the one algo method. That might not do the trick. Might not be the best of ideas right at the get-go, because it doesn't really teach you anything. But one alg has gotten people fast too, like Mitch Lane, for example, but with much less consistency. To get sub 15, practice a bit. It doesn't take very long to get sub 15, a few weeks maybe, but at least at sub 15 you know what you're doing. You have an idea, okay, I'm going to use this method. You should be familiar with the steps of your method, and you should be solving with a decent puzzle. I would recommend a Lan Skewb, but Methods also has a decent Skewb, and QJ has an alright Skewb. Not that bad. To get sub 12, practice some more. Get very familiar with your method of choice and look into optimizing your solutions and consider alternate solving techniques within your method. To get sub 10, learn how hacks works. Learn how some optimal algorithms work and try getting your no-ahead and turns per second as spectacular as ever. Once you're there, sub 8 and sub 6 are just a lot more time, and it's really self-directed after that. It's not something that you could really hand on a silver platter and say, oh, you do this. Of course you're going to need to practice, you're going to need to do probably thousands of solves. But in the end, you're going to have a much deeper understanding of how the puzzle works and how the puzzle operates and how you can use different sequences to influence each little part of your solving. Not very many people are sub 8 yet, but in due time I'm sure this video will be far outdated. And I'm happy for the people who are going to make it outdated, because that means that Skewb's just going to keep progressing and progressing. So here's to 2014 and Skewb. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please click the like button below, comment with any questions or concerns, and subscribe to Cubing World for new videos from great cubers every day of the week. Tomorrow's video will have the next video of the How to Get Fast series. But until then, thanks for watching, and bye.